I'm registered to vote, whether they move or not. It's just another bad idea that is floating in the legislature right now.
How early can they register now?
How early they can register right now is 18. You can register if you will turn 18 before the next election. So, for instance, if the last day to register to vote was August 12th for the September 14th election, the math is wrong, but somewhere in there, you can register up to August 12th and then be eligible for that September election as long as you turn 18 before. So now, what one clerk said is, are we now going to have another list at the precincts of people who are pre-registered to show them to say, oh, I'm sorry, you're pre-registered, you're not registered yet because you didn't quite turn 18.
I'm sure you're familiar with something called the Secretary of State's project that's being run by none other than George Soros.
Yes.
Okay. It's, if I remember correctly, I think 37 states do elect a Secretary of State by the voters, and the other 13, it's somebody that's either appointed by the state legislature. But do you think it's going to be an issue here in Massachusetts? Is Mr. Soros' influence going to have any effect?
I think for the same reason this nice woman said, I'm off the radar screen as far as they can tell. November 3rd, they're going to be surprised, though, because I'm going to work this and get out to as many people as I can. So I don't think they're going to waste money in Massachusetts because they think it's a sure thing. But what that project does, that program does do, is it demonstrates how important the Secretary of State's office, that somebody is investing this kind of money. And if you go to his website, you can see where he talks about taking back the Secretary's office and don't let Republicans have the Secretary's office because they're just going to try to steal your vote. One of the things their criteria in order to get their endorsement is you have to be in favor of Election Day registration. And you cannot be in favor of unconstitutional ideas such as IDs at the poll, which of course are constitutional because the United States Supreme Court said they were. So it's opposite of that. And I'm pretty proud to tell you right now that I have not received and will not seek the endorsement of the Secretary of State's project run by Mr. Soros.
Another question is, what about foreign language ballots? Are they used anywhere in Massachusetts yet?
They are. I think it's 20 or 25% of your population. If it's a language other than English, the ballots have to be printed in that. It causes quite an issue. I mean, you have to have extra ballots printed in the two languages, and you have to deal with those issues.
Are you for or against it?
I think there should be one ballot, and I think it should be printed in English.
Who do you endorse for governor, Mr. Baker? Can you say?
I'm trying to stay out of other people's races. I'm the Republican candidate, and I'd like to see Mr. Baker get in there because I think he more closely relates to the conservative positions I would have. But I don't think I would endorse anybody, nor would anybody endorse me. I think we really need to step out on our own and say, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, and look at my race independently.
I'm currently volunteering for Sean Beelett, who's running against Barney Frank down in the 4th District, but I'm also trying to give as much time as I can to Charlie Baker, Karen Polito, and Mary Connaughton. Do you have an office and a website, and will you have a phone bank where I can come and help you out?
Yep. Nice list of candidates there. But I have, we've been running as tight an organization as we can. If you go on to our OCPF report, you'll be surprised at what we've done on the money that we've raised, because we really haven't made a huge effort, as I said, to raise a lot of money. We've been running off our laptop, but within the next week we'll be opening an office in Woburn. It's going to be at 500 West Cummings Park, Suite 1500. We have a web page. We've had that right from the beginning. We have a Facebook fan page, which we update people on where we are and what we've been doing. And so we're trying to use those tricks to try to save money and get the word out as best we can.
How did a Republican become the city clerk in Woburn? Is that a Democratic town, or is it a Republican town? And the other thing that we seem to be afraid of, these new voters, whether it's 16 years old or whatever it is. But some of those people, knowing what's going on in this country, and I've had enough, some of those people that you're afraid that might be registered might be Republicans. They may be leaning towards our side, where we seem to be assuming that every new voter is a Democrat. And I don't think that's true anymore. I think we've had enough, the people have had enough, and it's time that, to encourage people. I don't care if they're 16 years old or how old they are. Let them register, let them vote. what happened in Minnesota, most of it was prisoners that they counted. It was 300 or so prisoners that voted that shouldn't have voted, that caused the election to go to Mr. Franken, Stuart Smalley, some people call him.
I don't think that's going to change significantly. We are going to try, my committee, again, not me, my committee is going to try to work much harder to raise some in the last few days, but there are 174 of us on our side out there, all looking for money. Of my own personal money? $1,000. I promised my wife. 500 for me and 500 for her. Another question you had was on the young voters. I wasn't saying that questioning people coming on would be Democrats or not. I'm just questioning spending more money on another system that we don't need. And when my son turned 16, he ran down to get his permit because he was excited that he was 16 and he'd get his permit. And when he turns 18, when she turned 18, my daughter was excited to go down and register to vote. It's a rite of passage. If it has no functional value at 16 and a half, why bother creating a piece of paper that says they're there? But definitely people should register to vote and hopefully vote. And there was a third part of your question.
How did you become the
City clerk.
The city clerk in Woburn, where, I don't know if it's a Republican town or a Democrat town?
It's hard to toot your own horn, but I play fair. I try to keep things above board. It is definitely a Democratic community. Woburn's changed a bit over the years, but it's definitely a Democratic community. Right now, half of the voters are unenrolled. About so we have like 10,000 unenrolled. We have about 9,000 Democrat and about 2,500 Republican. That's how much it was when I served on the city council. That's how much it was when I was elected city clerk. And also you would think that because of the state the way it is, how did I become president of the Massachusetts City Clerks Association also as a Republican? Again, because I try to play fair and play even. And I think that's what people are looking for, and I think that's what works.
We have two city councils in Medford, one Della Russo and Penta. They're both Republicans, but they kind of hide it. Did you hide your party affiliation in Woburn?
No,
So
people knew.
they knew.
People knew, yeah, yeah.
In Woburn, you are the clerk. So do you do anything as far as removing from the registered voters list the names of people who are deceased so that there's no fraud in that
Yeah.
way? Is there anything that you do in your town?
Yes, and it is kind of a problem. Deceased voters is a bit of a problem because you can only remove somebody from a voter list for 3 reasons. One is if I'm informed by another jurisdiction that they've registered to vote in that jurisdiction. 2 is if I receive a writing from you saying, please remove me from the poll. Or 3 is if you pass away. And I need evidence that you passed away.
So how does that get to you, that evidence?
If not you, put somebody else.
No,
in
because I'm gone already.
If somebody lived in Woburn and died in Woburn, we get the death certificate. If somebody lived in Woburn and died in a hospital in Boston, we will get the death certificate. And when we get the death certificate, that's what we do. We every time the death certificates come in, we go to the CVR, our voter list, and we delete it. The problem is if someone dies in New Hampshire or Florida, we'll never get that death certificate. And that's the tough part. And this is an issue that we talked about. There was a program I was on trying to have a nationwide voter registration system where they're all coordinated, because right now they're all state-based. And it is a problem. Mm-hmm. So a few months ago there was a report when somebody put out a report that said there were 160,000 deceased voters on the poll in Massachusetts, the rolls of Massachusetts, and the Secretary's response was, that's not true. We take our position seriously here. Well, it may not be 160,000, but it could be 1,600, or it could be 160, or it could be 16,000. It's tough to say. Mm-hmm. And I don't think his response was a good enough response, and I think more should be done to see if we can somehow get death lists from other states so that we're able to clean up our lists. But if it's a Massachusetts death, it can come right out. It's almost instant.
So each city and each town will get that name
Right.
and delete it automatically.
In Massachusetts, voter lists are maintained and created locally. So any registered voter in Woburn comes through my office. Other communities have election commissions, town clerks in the towns, and we are all tied into a statewide system. And I can look up Medford. If you come to the polling place on election day and you think you're registered in Woburn, and I can ask you your name and your date of birth, I can find where you are registered. And I can say, oh, you're registered in Medford. That's how you'd find out. Mm-hmm. So by the same token, we can find dead voters as well. And everyone would, that same process takes place, that the death certificate goes to the community of residence or the community of death, community of residence being the important part in voting.
Okay,
So that's
thank
how
you.
that would work.